Remember when Mick said when he was fighting, sometimes he'd fight so hard that he was thinking that he broke something inside and he was gonna die, and that's what he said. That's when the angels was pulling on him.
Ricky, you're scaring me. I don't know. What's wrong?
I can't.
Can't why?
I can't stop my hands from shaking.
Do you expect me to talk?
Hello, and welcome to episode 72 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? As always, I'm your host Becca, and joining me are the lovely Dave Bond and Chris Byrne. How are you?
Oh, feeling lovely, thank you, Becca.
Good evening, folks.
That sounded so tired, Dave.
Oh, Dave's
I am
exhausted.
actually really tired. I thought I was hiding it. I thought I came out a bit sort of more lounge.
You were going for kind of moody, weren't you? And mysterious.
I was going for, late night end of the bar, singing a few jazz hits.
Sipping on a whiskey.
Sipping on a whiskey. Suntory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other whiskies are available.
I am actually knackered. I'm right in the middle of really, really long working days at the other end of the county, so tons of driving, tons on my feet all day. But I'm really happy to be here discussing. Well, I'm really happy to be on a podcast because of the way we've recorded, we're not going to miss a week. I'll have this edited in time, but we did Rocky IV earlier than usual, and we're doing this a bit later than usual. So it's been over 2 weeks since we recorded, even though we haven't missed a week. So, yeah, really glad to be here to discuss this masterpiece.
You mean Rocky V isn't the best Rocky film?
It was the best Rocky film of 1990.
It's the only Rocky film of 1990.
That was a joke, Becca.
I know.
Tell us about the film, Becca.
Anyway. Yeah, as if you haven't guessed, we are talking about what was then the end of the Rocky series, Rocky V, starring Sly Stallone, Burt Young, Talia Shire, Sage Stallone, Tommy Morrison, and Tony Burton. Script by Stallone again, music by Bill Conti once again. Directed by John G. Avildsen once again, and released in 1990.
I like the way you said starring Tony Burton. Really, his only job in this film was to hold up Rocky's pants.
Literally, that was it. He was in it. I thought, I'm going to credit him. He's going to be in there.
For Apollo! Waving short trunks around.
Right, I didn't want to reel off the whole entire IMDb because I'd be there forever, but I thought, right, I'll pick a few choice people.
No, Tony Burton.
He's a stalwart.
He is a stalwart of the series, to be fair. Sage Stallone, before the sort of two elephants in the room. We'll talk more about it as we go through, but there have been two of this cast have now passed away. Well, three if you count Burgess Meredith, who's obviously got a cameo in this film, but two of the main stars of the film sort of died really before their time. Sage Stallone, who plays Rocky Jr. in this film, died at the age of 36 in, I think it was 2011 or 12, one of the two, of heart disease, which was just, a real shock at the time.
Really tragic.
Just an age to go at. I mean, I know you know. And Tommy Morrison, who's obviously Rocky's protege in this film, playing Tommy Gunn, he died of AIDS a few years ago. Now, he was an HIV/AIDS denier. He didn't believe he had it. He claimed he was negative. It's technically not on his death certificate, I've heard. But he died in his 40s, looking emaciated, looking like the people often do in end-stage AIDS.
Again, very
and
sad.
he was stopped from boxing after fighting Lennox Lewis because he had a positive HIV test. So two of the major cast members in this film are no longer with us, and they both died very young.
On that cheery note, what do we make of the film?
That's very tragic, isn't it? It's just one of these things that for a film that's about like redemption, it's very tragic that we have to lose these people.
I kind of wanted almost to get it out of the way because you always feel bad speaking ill of the dead, and I think they are two of the weak links in this film. I really do. I said in previous weeks that although I thought Rocky IV was more entertaining, this was probably a little bit more ambitious and probably a better film. that's a tough call, really. It depends. It just depends what you're looking for. I like the fact that they knew when to put the brakes on. That it's almost like you get to the end of Die Another Day, and like I said, where would they have taken it that had been bigger? I mean, I joked about him fighting a meteor or something. It's the same with Rocky here. Where can you possibly go after Drago? Particularly as, you know, Sylvester Stallone by this point is getting towards his mid-40s, and we've just seen it all. So they attempt to try to take the story full circle. They attempt to give Rocky a reason not to fight, and they attempt to give Rocky a sort of purpose post-fighting, and bring back some of that feeling from the first couple of films. And bringing back John G. Avildsen is part of that. How successful they are, I don't know. I haven't met many people who like this film. I always kind of respected it for trying, but I didn't have a good time with this a couple of nights ago when I watched it in preparation for this. There were two major parts in the film, and that's why I addressed the sort of passing of the two actors quite early, that I think damaged the film badly. They are not good actors, and they have a lot to do in the film. And also, Rocky's a dick. Rocky is a total fucking asshole in this film. And I was thinking earlier today, I was just thinking, really, you could put him from this film, Sean Connery from Diamonds Are Forever, and William Shatner from the motion picture, and have a fucking special event of wankers from films we've reviewed.
People who don't do their job properly.
Because he's that much of an arsehole in this film.
I don't think he's necessarily an arsehole, he's just a bit, like, stupid. And
His
just
attentions are focused elsewhere. They're
just-
not.
yeah,
Not
but it's like it's almost like seriously, like you never get the impression that he's like malicious in any way. Or
It's
he
not
doesn't-
malicious, but it's like, come on, no one's this stupid, surely.
Yeah,
He's
no.
just brought, people in to talk to you, and you've gone, oh no, I'm training. But anyway, that's my intro on the film. I think it's a really poor film, but I at least appreciated that they didn't have him, painted gold and fighting a fucking robot in this one or something.
like fighting in space.
Yeah, so
Rocky in space,
at
that
least
could have
they
been-
realised they needed to change direction. Bringing back Avildsen was an idea, at least. Whether it was a good one, we can talk about.
We kind of have gone a bit full circle, haven't we? Because I mean, just to kind of give my sort of view on the film, we kind of, in terms of the look and feel of this film, has more in relation to the first film than to Rocky 4, for example. I mean, you got obviously Rocky writing them all, write the theme tune, sing the theme tune.
Wouldn't that
Bill
be great?
He might have released an album, I don't know. Bill Conti's back in the score front, original director of the first film as well. So it's kind of like having some of the major players back again. But for me, I would say in terms of the production values, it harks back to kind of like the earlier films, the more kind of grainy, gritty kind of look and feel of it. Performance-wise, I think he's not. All performances across the board are okay. I mean, the guy who plays Tommy Gunn, not amazing, and I think the Sage kind of does his best. But I think all performances are generally convincing all the way across the board. But I think in terms of, you say ambitious is quite a good word. I think in terms of its kind of look and its feel, I think that's where its ambition lies. But I think if I were to rank all the Rocky movies so far, well, apart from Rocky Balboa,
Sorry, if you were to what?
If I was to rank,
Okay, good.
R-A-N-K.
Good.
If you were to rank off Rocky in each of the films, which one would
No,
come
Dave, that's
first?
what you can do.
I'm thinking the first one because he was younger.
I'm thinking the third one because he was hotter,
I have to place them in order of
and that
preference.
Buffon as well. So
Yeah, not only that, he's got Apollo there as visual stimuli, hasn't he?
Ding dong,
ding ding.
ding ding.
Would you pay to see Becca jerking off Rocky on the beach whilst Rocky looks longingly at Apollo in a boob tube?
And if they have a man hug afterwards,
Well, if Rocky washes himself off first.
he needs to get a bath.
Apollo don't want to be getting that all over his midriff.
Maybe that's what they were doing in the sea, jumping around, hugging each other.
Although this one we do
Washed
see him
themselves free.
Oh,
there's a shot of him naked in the shower, isn't there? You do see his bum, so it's like, ooh,
what's it?
brief titillation.
I suppose Rambo. Well, no, Rambo 3 was about 88, wasn't it? He's got himself in phenomenal shape for one shot of the film.
It looks okay all the way through. I mean, it's not.
No,
like
but no.
massively
What I mean
muscular
is, we don't see him shirtless in the rest of the film.
no.
I think
Because
Stallone
it's
was
not-
just in that physique anyway, more or less.
You just stayed like that most of the time?
Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
just give it
obviously
a-
he's always known for having that physique, particularly at that time as well. I think he's sort of bulked up for Rocky, and he just obviously he's never
Just
got
maintained it.
fat, has he? Really, I think he strikes me the kind of guy who would sort of maintain that sort of like muscle tough guy physique,
Take care of
because
himself.
that's he's not going to go. Oh, I'm not going to try and get fat or lose muscles and have to try and build myself up again for a film role. So it's like, well, I'm ready to go now. So. Possibly,
Chris,
I don't know.
what are your first thoughts, bud?
It's not a great film, but I do find it difficult to really hate on it. Because as you say, Dave, it does try and do something like more mature. It does go back to the original roots. It's logical in terms of the fact that it tries to sort of pitch Rocky as a trainer, and it's sort of after fighting Drago. It does sell that okay. The idea of it of Rocky actually, no, you've really done yourself in now. I think I can imagine the audience going like, at last. I don't think we could like buy another like David and Goliath sort of match. So I do think it has its ideas. I think its heart's in the right place. I think it's just one of those cases where the film just didn't come together. Or perhaps on the cutting room floor, there's a better film to be had. Because there are initial ideas that I do think are... I do feel like there is a good film in this somewhere. It just didn't come out. And I don't know whether that's just... It just didn't happen when it came to film. I think while it has everyone there, it's good to see Adrian get more to do in this film. It tried to build on the family stuff and all that, but I just felt like the performances, while they seem to be trying, but it just feels tired. I felt like no one really wanted to be there, even though that they are there trying, giving it their best, but the heart's really not in it. And I think that is the downfall of this film, other than the fact that maybe it's just been cut to shit as well.
I almost feel like some of them they're almost trying too hard. I mean, Tommy Morrison, as I say, wasn't an actor. I haven't really looked what else was. I'm more aware of him as a fighter.
Yeah.
I don't know if he acted in anything else. I could go and look at IMDb, but it's not that important, really. But there are scenes, for example, he does rage really badly and things like that. He comes off as really petulant, but
it pays off at the end, doesn't it?
But on top of that, there are scenes early on in the fight, not early on in the film, but early on in his career, where he's got Rocky in his corner, and he starts panicking at the end of the round, and Rocky's trying to talk him round, and I can see what he's trying to do. He's responding to direction that you're really taking it in and thinking about it and visualizing, but he's just trying too hard. He sat in his corner between rounds with Rocky talking to him. And he's really, really over-emoting. It looks quite ridiculous once you notice it. So I think he's the problem in this film. I just think they'd have been better off getting an actor, frankly, as opposed to let's get a real-life boxer.
Yeah.
Because Tommy Morrison was at or near his peak around this time. Around near his peak. I saw him just after the film came out. I actually saw him knocked out by Ray Mercer, but that was for like the WBO heavyweight title, which wasn't... It was the lesser of the belts, but he was already an arena fighter against names. He fought, I think I'm right in saying, did he beat George Foreman? He was in line for a big payday against Lennox Lewis, but got himself knocked out. And then eventually he did fight Lennox Lewis in, I think, 95. Lewis beat him in 6 rounds. I was about to say the name of a boxer there, actually, but I don't think it would mean much to either of you. For boxing fans out there, if you've never seen Tommy Morrison, he's very like Jerry Cooney, the early sort of 80s white boxer who was big left hooker, could put you out with a punch, but could be knocked out and had suspect stamina. So Tommy Morrison fights tended to be relatively exciting, but I don't think he was remotely durable enough to have like a long-term career at the top, despite, regardless of the diagnosis. But I don't know how he ended up in this film. I really don't. I get from his background that they haven't just got some kid from LA. Tommy Morrison, the actor, or the boxer, was from Oklahoma. think it was from Oklahoma City, to get sort of a less sort of starry background, just just a state in America. I can see why they've chosen him for his background, but he's not very good in this.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Sly's always chosen, well, particularly in the later films, he's always chosen actually real life boxers. I mean, for the next two weeks from here on in.
Yes.
He has.
I don't know if you said the last week because, of course, it's not his film, but certainly next week he did. The guy who is the world heavyweight champion next week was in reality around the time of filming light heavyweight champion.
Yeah, and we've also got the week out in Creed as well. There's the guy facing is an actual
I'm just
boxer.
saying he didn't direct that.
No.
Douglas choice. But yeah, Union Kane in this fight is a real boxer as well from that era.
Yeah, I was going to say he's a real life from the boxing background, isn't he? So
yeah.
Oh, was he the one who considered like a paper champion?
Oh, no, I don't recall that. But I mean, I've forgotten a lot of what I used to know anyway about this stuff. But Tommy Morrison wasn't a great boxer, but he did mix it at quite an elite level. And whilst you can always look at his shortcomings, he fought some names and he beat some names as well. But I think he's a problem in this film. And when we're not with those two, we're with Rocky Jr., and that's an awful lot to put on a kid who wasn't really an actor either.
Yeah.
I don't want to slag him off because he's not horrendous, but there's quite a lot of lifting to do in that role for a kid, and he's not really an actor anyway.
I know what you mean. The film tries to sells on people or two people who aren't actually actors.
Yes.
So you have like a boxer who hasn't acted before, and the son of an actor who arguably could have some experience, but in reality, doesn't come across in there. I mean, I don't get annoyed too much with child actors, so to speak, unless it's Jaden Smith. But
no, and I do normally make allowances as well. I mean, when we get to the Phantom Menace, I'm not going to be kind. I mean... Well, yes and no. It depends what it is. I mean, when we get to Star Wars, for example, I think Jake Lloyd's quite bad in the role, but given he's a kid, I'm a little bit more forgiving than some.
I think that's why you have to be so forgiving, because they are so young. I mean, obviously, you've got people like Christian Bale, for example, he started his career quite young. But you can see there's an element of... I love him now, he's grown as an actor, but there's an element of precociousness there a little bit. But I think with Sage, I mean, it was just purely on sort of family, really. He does his best, but I think, when a child actor is so young...
He tries really hard.
To yeah, exactly. You just have to kind of take it for what it is.
You can see he's worked hard at it and wants to be good.
Exactly.
Which is why I'm not going to slate him too hard at all.
He did all right. He was very convincing as Rocky Jr. So
to be fair, he does what he needs to do. He does whenever Rocky in this film lets him down, like he does do a lot.
He does genuinely look pissed off, doesn't he?
He does, and gutted and disappointed. It's not.
It's very believable.
Yeah, so in regards to, at least in the basic sense, it's not like, oh, this is god awful.
But it feels like 30% of the running time we're following this kid, and that's not Sage Stallone's fault. That's why am I watching a Rocky film that's 30 to 40% 14-year-old?
Also, that god awful earring.
That was a bad choice.
It was late 80s, early 90s fashion,
This film's really
yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the failings of this film is the choices in the film. It goes for contemporary hip-hop at that time, which I kind of understand because...
A lot of like MC Hammer and things like that.
Well, no, I mean, I think because of the music in Philadelphia at that time was predominantly more hip-hop in terms of what they listened to, where Rocky... grew up, has changed. So I think it was a directive. It was a decision to sort of go in that direction to move the times. But looking back now, you kind of wish they just harked back to the original Rocky and just kept it a bit more traditional. I think it would have.
I remember, funnily enough, we've talked about Now Playing in previous podcasts. A bit of an influence on certainly me as a podcaster.
Likewise.
Funnily enough, I remember them talking about Terminator 2. And when they talked about Terminator 2, because Terminator 2 was made released in 1991, but it's set in 1994. Right?
I didn't know that.
Doesn't make any
Ah.
fucking
No.
sense because John would only be 10 then, but
Yeah.
he's meant to be 10 years. It's set in 1994.
I need to rewatch that film.
And they were saying, because Edward Furlong was where it spent a lot of that film wearing a Public Enemy t-shirt, and there's Guns N' Roses music and stuff. And even by 94, that's extraordinarily dated. And I do think sort of 89 to 91, that sort of era, it lasted 5 minutes, all of it. You know what I mean? It's just...
It's always going to be in a bubble, really, isn't it?
I'm just saying, you could have sat down and watched this film in 1993 and gone, fuck me, this is dated. And it's only 3 years old at that point.
Yeah.
It just arrived predated, almost. So when I say the most dated in the series, what do I mean by that? Because the first one looks like it was made in the 70s, which means it looks 40 years old. And this one looks like 27 years old, so surely that makes it less dated. But I just think it's more tied to its time than almost any of the other films. I could be argued with on that, because 4 is all about the vanity of the mid-80s and all the rest of it. But I just look at the choices in music and style in this film, and more than anything else in the film, it screams 1990.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I would agree. It is very much like a 90s film. Whereas, Rocky IV is very much dated. It's very much set within and is an 80s film.
What? So, do you have any theories of why that might be, though? Do you think it's I might sound daft, but do you think it might be terms of like, I was going to say quality of the music there, but maybe that's not quite the right word. But possibly, it's like, okay, you listen to like, say something like Hearts on Fire or the music's playing in the car, No Easy Way Out. Now, while that's really cheesy, it's really enjoyable. Or like, you can even argue.
I guess apart from the Gorbachev look-alike, you could believe Rocky IV was made in like 1982, 1983. No, you could. You could go, well, yeah, fair enough. That's the 80s and the Cold War was on. Yeah, okay.
Everyone had a robot in the house at that time.
What I'm saying is that any time post about 81, that could be, right? Up to about 86, and then past then you've got Glasnost and all the rest of it, and suddenly it looks very dated. This film had a much smaller window that it could have been made in. I just think those fashion and style choices. It's not about it is about the window and the longevity of it. That there's nothing in Rocky IV that's like, wow, that looks so amazing and classic and wonderful. I'm not saying any of that. But if you didn't know when it was made and someone said, here's Rocky IV, and you went, all right, when was that made? 1983. You put that film on and you could believe them. You might look at it and go, isn't that meant to be Gorbachev? He wasn't in at that point. But apart from that, you'd believe most of it.
Yeah.
Vegas fights were in vogue by then and so on. I think in this film, if you told me it was made in 1988, I wouldn't believe you. And if you told me it was made in 1992, I wouldn't believe you. Its window is really, really small, which is why it's so dated. I've never thought about that before, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it's all this sort of like hip hop music that, it isn't even like, like well established hip hop songs now. It's just like, it's just generic, stereotypical.
It's all very generic, yeah.
Well, it's always going to be kind of underlined by the style at the time. I mean, you watch, like, for example, like with an Asian cinema, you kind of, in Japanese cinema as well. I mean, you can always tell, even a film that's kind of 2 or 3 years old is horribly, just because of the style of clothes and the music, and just because the scene changes so quickly.
I do
but
remember Chunky Knitwear coming back in briefly. You know what I mean?
I know that they saw that off, but
I know. So yeah, it was. So yeah, that does hurt it, and of course, Tommy Morrison's got a mullet.
That did date it horribly for me.
That must
I was
have
just
been
like,
dated by then,
gosh,
surely.
really? Dear, oh dear.
Yeah. That's after his first choice turned it down. Chris.
I was like, when did Kevin Keegan appear in this film?
Oh, imagine if they still had those late 70s bubble perms.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Are mullets going to come back?
No, I hope not.
I don't give a shit, to be honest. If I saw people with mullets, I'd be like, oh, they got a mullet. It's like, up to them. I don't give a shit what people think.
We've had like there's 80s revival, and there's kind of like the 90s with all kind of like the crop tops and everything like they used to wear. But now there's kind of a whole 90s. Well, we kind of go backwards because like flares and stuff and everything. So maybe it might come around again. I don't know. Fashion is always recycled, isn't it? So.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure some of this will turn up again, but Yeah,
Hopefully not the mullet.
it makes it a really, really specific time capsule, a bit like Terminator 2. That with the choices in the soundtrack and the look in that film, it couldn't be any other than like 1991, maybe.
No.
But then there's a certain... I mean, in the argument of Terminator 2, and possibly this, there is a certain nostalgia going back to, like, films like this that are just so 90s. It's a sort of, you know, and I suppose the same can be said for, like, any decade, like 80s films, you know, it's a certain sort of, like, a nostalgia element. It sort of almost, like, it takes you back to that time, almost. So,
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Oh, I think if this film had been really good, I don't think we'd be sat here going, "Oh, it's really ruined by the fashions."
Yeah,
and it's not that offensive. It's just
It dates itself.
it's
Doesn't
not
it, rather than being...
it's not a great film, and it falls into a slightly embarrassing little era. Nothing really over the top. It's not like they're all wearing platform shoes or anything. Well, Sly is, because he's pretended to be 5'10", but but it is, as I say, even 3 years later, or 3 years earlier, this might have had a significantly better soundtrack. For example,
Would you agree with Stallone when he says this is like beyond like terrible? This is like sort of like 0 out of 10 almost, like kind of film, or do you think it has some merits?
I've never thought it deserves the hate it gets. I mean, I didn't have a great time with it, but thinking back today, I was thinking back to our Star Trek rankings episode. What was marked about some of the lower films in that series was how I couldn't get that excited about them either way. I wasn't furious with it. I was a bit bored. And when I really thought about it, there were things I really didn't like, but I couldn't get angry. I don't quite understand why this film is as hated as it is, in that it's not Superman 4, everyone laughs at it. It's not Die Another Day, everyone disdains it. But I've never met anyone who really likes it that much. Sylvester Stallone talks like he wishes he'd never made it. And it's the least... fun's the wrong word, because how much fun is the first film, but it's not fun compared to the films around it. I don't think it's great, but I don't know why it's hated. I certainly wouldn't give it 0 out of 10. I just think, like, I wish there were better actors in it. I wish it wasn't in such this weird sort of little time capsule of 1990. And I wish Rocky wasn't a dick. I wish it had been better written. But what they're trying to do is understandable. It's not. I don't hate it.
Yeah. No, I guess maybe it was just like a missed opportunity to end on a good note, and I think that's probably more than that. What Stallone feels, that and like the fan reaction as well, because he's probably like, okay, well, fans really like it, so fans really dislike it.
That is a key point. Last week's film took 300. Did I say 300 million or 270? I forget which one. Certainly, one of the last two films was around there. This film took less than 120 million at the worldwide box office off a budget of 42. So it's starting to get to, it's not making sort of the 3 times multiple of its budget, and it's under half the take of the last film. We're also getting into an era where Sylvester Stallone is starting to make stuff like Oscar and Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. So I'm sure this is, because he made, when Cliffhanger came out, it was seen as
amazing film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But forget what we think of it. When Cliffhanger came out, it was seen as like a real comeback for him, probably for the first time since sort of 86, 87. I do, because Rambo 3 wasn't very well thought of either. So I think it's probably a number of things. It took far less money than any of the rest of the series. And it's probably in the midst of an era that, like, Sylvester Stallone himself probably isn't too nostalgic for. Because his films around this time weren't great, and they weren't doing very good money. And he was hitting his mid-40s and probably was starting to think maybe it's all over. And here we are.
Towards the end of it all, maybe.
Yeah, here we are over a quarter of a century later, and he's still a big name.
Yeah, it's still going strong. That's all good. That's what we like to see. There's a lot of longevity in there, so it's all good. It's all good.
It's all good. So, I guess, shall we talk about the film sequentially?
In a sequential fashion.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this is the first film where I think, or I can at least see, they've re-edited the fight from the last film. The version we see of 4 is all in a very slightly different order. Like, when we saw it the first time, very early in the film, it was hit the one in the middle. weak, and he's not a machine. He's not a man. He's a machine. He's not a machine. He's a man. Sorry, he's not a machine. He's a man. That's it. Not fucking hell. He's a machine. That's not very good, is it? That's not gonna like cheat you up. You can't hurt him. He's really hard.
It's not very encouraging, is it?
All of that was quite early in the fight. In this re-edit, it's just before like he rallies and starts getting close to knocking him out, and you've got this sort of Adrian leaping forward, and then it sort of slows down and turns black and white. Actually, I think it's quite stylish. I think it looks all right.
Yeah, I do like the style of the opening. It does. It looks kind of very. It looks quite dynamic, I think, and it kind of adds more gravitas, I would say.
Yeah, I think it does a good job because I think it also tells you that this is going to be a different Rocky film as well. Stylistically, it tells you it's going to be a lot more, should we say, a little bit more grounded, a little bit more rough around the edges, a little bit more serious, rather than the waving the American flag for like 90 minutes, yeah. like we just see. So, I do think it's really effective, really well done, and a positive start.
Definitely. And then we see him in the shower, and he is clearly not looking right. We don't immediately know what, but you've got Tony, his trainer, now saying, "You did well for Apollo," as he waves some pants around. And then he tells him to get Adrian, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And when Adrian comes in, he's shaking like a leaf.
He doesn't know what's up.
He doesn't look good. No.
And he does call her Mickey at one point.
Yeah, he's a bit confused, isn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, again, this obviously explains. Well, it's a nice sort of okay. Well, Rocky is now officially getting fucked physically now. He can't continue to fight. I think if by the end of this film they decide like Rocky must do another match, it'll be for fuck's sake. But they really do sell that hard because the first thing that happens when he gets off the plane is he gets challenged to a match and he's like, I don't really want to do it.
This felt just a general point about the film that we start to see now. Firstly, Rocky gets off the plane to the Rocky music playing, which is very meta. It's a bit like Octopussy, isn't it? Oh, what a tune! Yeah. And he says, "Where's the kid?" And out runs he's now a fully grown orangutan.
Oh, it looks considerably less like a
Andy
monkey
Serkis
than
is
the
now
biggest
playing him
one.
now.
So let's just quickly doff our cap in the direction of this problem, and then we'll gloss over it thereafter. He's gone off to Russia with an 8-year-old son and come back to a 14-year-old, right? And he had his 9th wedding anniversary just before they went out. And again, they've now got a 14-year-old. That wedding was just after his first fight with Apollo, which was 11 months before Apollo's penultimate fight, which was 5 years before he was killed, which was a couple of months ago. So,
don't read too much into it. It doesn't make sense.
This is all over the fucking shop now. My other just general point about the film, and we'll see this all the way through.
Monkeys age a lot faster,
Possibly. We'll be seeing a lot of Caesar during this film.
Oh no, he's a fully fledged human boy rather than monkey child.
Yeah, but he was in that Charles Dance show, First Born as well. But might look human, but still have
got less hair.
Yeah, we talked about how the first film had. Well, we could go right the way back. Actually, the first fight is got a lot of Wetner in it. The second fight is called Super Fight 2. The second Ali Frazier fight got that moniker. The third fight, you've got the wrestler. Well, that happened with Muhammad Ali and others as well. The fourth fight, you've got Hit the One in the Middle, which was a Jack Dempsey line to Max Baer. But all of those felt a lot more organic. This is the one film where I think he is just absorbed himself in a load of boxing from that era and just grabbed a raft full of lines and stories and characters and barely bothered to veil them. We immediately see what is clearly Don King.
Yeah, really obviously so. With that catchphrase, only in America.
That is Don King's catchphrase.
Yeah, pretty much.
I kind of enjoy this villain. I mean, yes, he is blatantly Don King, like a Don King type, shall we say?
Basically, if you didn't have he's basically Don King, but in all without the flashy jewellery, and
the
you know,
hair.
he has the big camel coat and the hair and everything, but he just needs all the jewellery and all the gold and everything.
I mean, do you think there's probably like a kind of like criticism of Don King? Should we say?
Yes, because the whole taking of Tommy from Rocky is the story of Don King taking Mike Tyson, right down to so much of what you see Mickey say to Rocky in the flashback and what Rocky then says to... Well, in fact, Mickey's lines to him in that flashback are lifted almost verbatim from a Customato interview sometime after Tyson's first few fights. Tyson sat next to him in the interview as a young guy, about 19 at the time. And when he starts talking about fear to Tommy, that is Customato. In fact, the very first biography I ever read of Mike Tyson was written by Jose Torres, the former world light heavyweight champion who was trained by Customato, and it was called Fire and Fear. That was that was a Customato metaphor that he would use to his boxers. That fire is great because it warms you, it heats your house, but if you let it get out of control, it consumes you. And that's what fear is like to a professional sportsman. What he didn't do is call it Frankie Fear. Like
Frankie Fear is your best friend.
So that's been stolen from that. The whole taking of him is very like that as well. He also tells a story. Don King always used to tell a story against himself, funnily enough, although he was proud of it. When Frazier fought George Foreman, Frazier was the favourite, as the known quantity had beaten Muhammad Ali, everything else. So Frazier came in, but he was basically knocked down about 6 or 7 times and in 2 rounds. And he said that he arrived with Joe Frazier and his entourage. And as Frazier started hitting the mat every 2 seconds, he started edging around the ring. And when Frazier was counted out or stopped, he basically ran into the ring, stepping over Frazier to embrace the new champion, and he left with Foreman. And that's what we see in this film. He's all Union K until Tommy starts winning. This is just stories and dialogue and lines and ideas lifted wholesale from boxing in this era and the 2 or 3 years around it.
Do you think it's this film is an attempt for Stallone to sort of say something about the current state of boxing? You know, because I think particularly in the later on, like at the scene where he's Tommy's driving off, he's like sort of trying to like persuade him, no, you know, this is not, you know, you don't want to go with the guys like this, and it's all sort of like it's letting out his frustrations of what he disagrees with. You know, it's like, you know, he doesn't care about it, it's all about the money. You know, it's not going to look after you. You know, it doesn't have your best interest. Is that kind of Stallone's take on like criticism of like the state of boxing?
It appears to be. The one thing he might have slightly wrong is you will get your shot. Well, there was a time where Don King controlled everybody, so if you weren't with him, it was very difficult to get a shot. Or if you did luck into one and win, if you lost your title, it was very difficult to get another shot. You know, Lennox Lewis took you know, a good 2 or 3 years to come back from his first defeat, and he was, you know, people were being positioned for shots ahead of him because of some of this. But I mean, maybe whatever it is, I thought this was bizarre. I mean, I quite like Rocky trying to like almost entertain them. That line about boxers never. He said doctors want boxing outlawed, and he said, "Yeah, I agree. Boxers should never fight." That reminded me of when George Foreman made his comeback, and they said to him, "Do you think there should be a retirement age for boxers?" And he said, "Yeah, 65." But this George Washington Duke comes in with Union Cane. The one thing I do like about it is Union Cane is a normal fucking size. We've already stopped going further and further down this line of them being Goliaths. So I quite like that.
There's must be a stark contrast between him and like Drago, for example, who appears to be the superhuman, and you've got somebody like Union Cane who just, you know, is a normal fighter, somebody you would expect to have that kind of physique.
But he doesn't look formidable. I mean, you know, I mean, you never really see him in action in the film, to be fair. But you know, you kind of like first impression think, oh, Rocky could beat him easily. Really, you know, it's only really because of his current condition that he shouldn't do it. That's the only thing. But if it weren't for that,
Didn't think he'd be. I didn't really think he'd be a credible threat. Really, I kind of thought, oh, Rocky could have him easily.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, he doesn't look that intimidating, does he? And
No.
especially a bit later on when he's in the car. We just look, he's clearly just like a puppet, just being used by Don King.
That's the whole point.
George.
Just call him Don King. It's just
Don
easier.
King managed to when Tyson came out of prison, just as he was sort of ready for a shot, Don King had managed to position Bruce Seldon and Frank Bruno and stuff amongst the champions. I think Francois Botha was the other one. None of them that good. And it's just what a coincidence that the 3 champions now Tyson's ready to fight again are all shit. It's not so much fixed as just almost it is undue influence though. I don't think the fights were necessarily fixed, but I think it's the same here. It's just the guy, one of the guys he's got fighting for him, the most ready, the one who's most ready for a shot. What I don't buy is he's just had life and death in Russia on Christmas Day, which was bizarre, and he comes back and the press are all over Rocky about you've got to address this now. It's like, all right, really? Apollo died 2 months ago. You've just gone up there and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would they really give a shit about this guy? But and this promoter has appeared from nowhere.
Yeah. What I like about it is just how much of a fucking arsehole he is. Clearly he's like, oh god, I just want him to get punched in the face 10 times, really, really hard. Because he does come out and just sort of really aggressively try and call him out to sort of that in the kind of over persuasive car salesman kind of way, and kind of almost bullying tactics to kind of get him to do what he wants. So he instantly oh, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
You kind of really, really want him to see get his comeuppance literally from the first scene onwards. It's not even you have to even build up to it instantly. Go, oh fucking hell, this guy. I'm gonna so want this guy to get his ass whooped at some point. I don't care if he's a boxer or not. He fucking deserves it. So, I kind of like sometimes the clear cut kind you just the clear cut villains. Should we say? Sometimes that's good for me anyway. I can enjoy them.
He's fine. I mean, one of the things people knock when they don't like this film is him. Yeah. And he's ridiculous and all the rest of it. And I think, I can see what he's doing. And whilst it could be a little better veiled or a little bit more of an allegory rather than almost literally the same guy, I'm okay with it. I think he's fine in the film, and he is a reflection of what was around in that era.
Yeah.
I mean, Don King's still around now, but he's nowhere near as powerful as he was in this era. He was pretty much in control of the heavyweight division.
Oh yeah. So yeah. I think it's also the cheapness of not cheapness of it, but kind of just how it's just gone for the money of not even the fun fighters benefit. It's just from this guy who's essentially just pimping everyone out and just, So I think that alone just sort of resonates with me. So I kind of, fine with Stallone doing this. Really, I think it's yeah.
But I mean, we go from there to isn't the next scene him basically tucking his kid into bed?
Yeah,
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And I both like and hate this scene.
Do you like it because of the drawing of the one with the big boobies?
I did. I thought that's what I call art. I thought. I mean, that's quite funny, isn't it? Because he's 14.
He's like, don't let him see this. We'll just cover it up.
But if you were going to draw that, wouldn't you put a bit more detail in it than I mean, it's just a daub, isn't it, of a pair of tits? But anyway, there's a few things I kind of like about it in that. He has an easy ambience. It reminds you Sylvester Stallone's quite a charming actor.
Yeah.
He plays off his real son quite well. And I like the fact there's a poster of Apollo and Rocky from around the second fight on the wall as well. But it's all padded. We talked for ages about his French teacher, I think, and what's the maths teacher like, or English teacher. She's pretty hot too. And it's this is fucking going on a bit.
I think it's just probably spend a little bit of time with them because you're not going to see them together for quite a long stretch of the film.
Maybe, and I think he does use the term home team in this scene as well.
Yeah, that's why he kind of introduces it. But I think it's just to set up the fact that obviously, later on,
they're close. They've got these little touchstones,
Exactly, yeah. It's just the fact that obviously later on in the film, he's going to sort of let him down. So this is kind of just to set up their relationship, really, and so they are quite close, and to set up the whole idea of home team.
All right, I kind of take
and
it
go
back.
from that, really.
I see the point. Yeah,
And,
right.
and then this scene, well, it's not just in this scene, but it's this scene where I actually noticed that Stallone's playing Rocky more how Rocky used to be. Like in Rocky 1, a little on Rocky and possibly Rocky 2
He's back,
as well.
he's back to telling the bad jokes.
Do you mean almost like a little bit sort of self-effacing?
Yeah, a little bit more simple. He's not, he's
A little bit dumb, but lots of silly jokes and kind of charming and sweet in his way.
Yeah.
And I suppose if he's finding pictures of his kids drawing like tits or whatever, and I'm making, if you haven't seen the film, I'm making it sound really graphic. It isn't. It's a silhouette.
It's literally, I'm sure you guys probably did it, when you were young for boobies and all the rest of it. And
I'd have drawn them better than that, and I'm not an artist. But anyway, I suppose it shows that there's a bond there that he wouldn't have with his mother. There's something special about father and son relationship because he's not embarrassed. His dad's found that, and they have a little joke about it, and it's don't show your mum this. She doesn't. I think she says something like she doesn't understand French or something like that. So I kind of take it back. It also gives time for Paulie and Adrian to be away from him in order for an issue to come up and them start having a fight, a row.
Yeah, because apparently Paulie's the biggest dickhead in the world.
Yeah,
in
which
this film,
is
he's
funny
considered
because
to be nicer.
Outside of the first 10 minutes of this film, yeah, I'd agree. Paulie's better in this film than any other film in terms of like the guy, the character, but he's an asshole in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, his usual kind of knob, but I think in this film he really makes up for it.
Yeah,
There's a bit of a role reversal between him and Rocky, I guess.
I mean, I think this is like part of the faults of the film. I mean, I think this is where I think part of the film needed to be sort of scripted a bit better, or maybe there was something more in the film that was cut that you just sort of decided didn't think they needed for like a short running time. But you never really see Paulie really apologise for it, or kind of sort of grow with that. You never sort of see it have that repercussion where and then he sort of starts on journey to be like a good force in a film, if you know what I mean.
No, it just becomes the new normal.
Yeah.
Paulie's fucked up and you've now lost everything. He screams, I promise you I never took a freaking penny. And you're like, actually, Paulie, no one thinks you stole anything. They think you just... But was it... And I never quite remember this correctly, even when I've just seen the film. Is it that he signs away the power of attorney, or is it that he gives it to Rocky to sign away? Does he say that thing you got Rocky to sign, or does she say that thing you signed?
I don't know. I've always thought it was thing he signed.
Yeah, that's what I thought the same.
Right. So he signed it without reading it, or he presented it to Rocky to sign without reading it, basically. And it gives power of attorney to the lawyer, who has just basically...
gambled it away.
Yeah, he's stolen the money. They've got a mortgage on the house that they didn't even know they had, which isn't the same house as the last film. The family all moved while they were in Russia. It's this sort of
I was going to say, I did
thing now. That was
I
not
did
the
think,
same
oh,
house.
it looks quite new.
I thought it was, actually. I thought it was the same.
I don't think it is.
They look familiar. I could be wrong. I mean, no. I mean,
I might be wrong as well, but I'm sure it was like a white thing in the last film, and it's not in this one. But anyway, so they're going to lose the house, and Paulie basically says, I still own my place. So they move back to the house that Rocky used to visit Adrian in the first film.
Yeah, so basically go back to square one.
Yeah. Before that, before they actually make the move, he's basically told advertisements are going to be a tough sell because you're now a bankrupt and we haven't proved you innocent yet, and also they've only got to look and find you've got an assault conviction for when you were working for a loan shark. I thought that didn't stop him selling American Express in the previous, but all right, okay, fine, right, fair enough. So Rocky wants to fight.
Yeah.
And Adrian said, and he's just saying a couple of fights gets us out of this, which is logical. But Adrian,
It's the way out of poverty, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You can see why he's saying it.
Back again to square one.
But Adrian says, do you trust me, or do you love me, or do you care about me? I can't remember what she says. And there's a long pause as he looks at her, and he's like, okay, snookered, I've got to see a doctor. Because she says, if you see a doctor and you're cleared, I'll support whatever you want to do. And of course, the next thing is he goes to the doctor, and this is another bit he's cribbed because the medical report he's given is effectively the medical report that was given to Ali by the Mayo Clinic before he fought Larry Holmes. He was cleared to fight him, but that septum thing where there's a hole between the two ventricles in the brain, they found that on Muhammad Ali in 1980, and it can get worsened by repeated blows to the head. So he's cribbing a bit from that because Muhammad Ali was cleared to fight, even though the report, and I've read it or read bits of it, raised more questions than answers. He is referring to the same thing, that hole in the part of the brain. He's got that from reading that. And he's told he wouldn't get licensed anywhere, which is bullshit because there's places people with HIV have fought and there are places where you don't have to do scans. But for the sake of the plot and the fact that the more stringent state athletic commissions wouldn't, yeah, okay, so Rocky has to retire.
Yeah, so for the sake of the plot, and also like you wouldn't get the same payday as you would do, was he? So, so this is kind of like this is kind of like a big blow of everything to Rocky. First, you lose your house, your money. Now you definitely can't box anymore.
But you've still got your old coat and hat and some chunky knitwear.
Yeah, it's just to top off, just to sort of really sell the fact that they're going back. Like first scene, the Rocky's gone back.
Yeah, it's almost like he steps back into his old persona.
Yeah, it's like it's still fitting, and then
he starts smoking again instantly, which is quite funny.
Well, yeah, why the fuck not? I mean, you're not gonna, you don't need to be fit anymore now, do you? Like so, and. He puts the glasses on Adrian as well. They have that kind of like, oh, do you remember that time where, I had that awkward moment?
That is very awkward.
When we conceived a baboon.
One hairy baby.
Yeah. But Adrian starts wearing the same old coat and glasses now.
Yeah.
So
she doesn't really. I mean, she does dress like a middle-aged woman. They always dress her kind of like that after the first couple of films, but... She did. Talia, again, I mean no knock on it because people do age, but there is a noticeable difference between Talia Shire in the opening credits when she's at ringside in Rocky IV and all the scenes thereafter. Talia Shire has aged in that 3 or 4 years.
Well, there's a clear difference in that scene where she's still in the gear from Rocky IV. And
that's what I mean. You see it instantly, whereas Stallone really hasn't at this point. He still looks very similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they come back to the neighbourhood and they live in Paulie's old house, basically.
Which is a good job it's still available, wasn't it?
That's what he said.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Trotters keeping the flat in Only Fools and Horses. It was like, why the fuck would you? You've just won 7 million or whatever. But yeah, well, it's like, well, in case the plot requires us to come back here. It was Paulie, so maybe he just kept something for himself. It wouldn't be out of keeping with his ego that he just thinks he wants to be given things, but he wants to feel he's standing on his own 2 feet as well.
Yeah.
So you gave me a watch and all the rest of it, but I want a job. So maybe he would keep his own house. You never know.
Yeah. Plus, maybe it's like just attachment to old age.
The area. Yeah,
could be. Okay. But anyway, so they're back at the old place, back to to where they were.
Because they all live down the road from each other. Because it only occurred to me after we recorded Rocky IV that Apollo is in a pool in like beautiful sunshine, like LA kind of weather, and he rings up Rocky and says, "I'm on my way round," and they clearly live in like a very different climate. And the previous week, you had Mr. T saying, "Come round to my apartment tonight." So you think, well, he lives within a short driving distance of Rocky's house as well. We're going to find out Russia's in Pennsylvania as well, aren't we?
just the north part where it snows a lot.
They're all in the same state, very close to that city. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty serious stuff. I mean, Rocky's got no employment skills, no money. Adrian, I think, does she go back to the pet shop?
Yeah.
She does, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
It is literally back to square one all over again, isn't it?
Not instantly, but you find out, well, Rocky finds out later on where, having that confrontation with Donking, not sorry,
Not donking.
not donking, yeah, and then so it is.
That's before he starts training. Not Jerry Cooney.
Yes,
Yes.
not Brian Bosworth, no.
Yeah. I get confused then because you said Brian Bosworth and my head mistranslated it as Brian Boitano. You know, like South Park. What would Brian Boitano do? Yeah, can you imagine
That's
that?
what I was thinking. Yeah.
Rocky just trains an effeminate ice skater for the rest of the film.
Especially if we do South Park movies, I can't wait till we get to that scene.
That'll be a long retrospective, wouldn't it?
2 films. Well,
One film?
well. It's not South Park, but like Matt's doing Ben and Matt and Trey. So.
Yeah, there's Orgasmo and Basketball.
Which I did like.
Oh my god, I've not seen Orgasmo for years. Oh my god.
I find that funny.
I remember that being quite hilarious.
I remember finding Basketball really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I can't remember the order of scenes. He goes into the gym, doesn't he? Which is now pretty dilapidated.
Yeah.
And watches. Now, Burgess Meredith died in about 97, and I know he had Alzheimer's by that point. Alzheimer's can take years, and this is 1990, and he doesn't look well, does he?
I must say, I did notice a few sort of things in this clip. I mean, I found this particular scene, this sequence, heartbreaking. For me, is one of the most emotional.
Was that because Mickey is dead, or do you think that's because Burgess Meredith? Oh, because Burgess Meredith. Actually, I can do it. Get it right at the only fourth attempt.
I'm just laughing.
I've always felt he should have been called Burgess Meredith.
He is called Burgess Meredith.
Oh, sorry.
Fuck it up. You get it right.
Burgess Meredith. Yes.
If Chris is trying to get it wrong, he gets it right. Has he got it wrong? Anyway,
that is a perplexing mystery.
There you go. Write to us at expect us to talk at gmail.com.
It's like one of those questions, like, if a tree falls down, if no one's there to hear it, is there really noise?
Well, yes, obviously. Anyway, that's not a difficult one. Yes, of course.
How do you know you're never there to hear it?
So how do you know?
Well, that's the same with everything I never see. Is the scene affecting to you because of Burgess's clearly declining health?
Yes, both obviously because he's portraying a character who has passed away in previous films, and also because he does look quite poorly in this scene. But again, it's very touching, and I think that the way it's kind of done, it's in a kind of very like subtle way, and yeah, I just felt I don't know, I'm just very emotional at the moment, I guess. After the ending of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, spoiler alert. Yeah, I was like, oh, shed a bit of a tear.
Yeah.
But, no,
Burgess Meredith dies at the end.
Yeah, the end of Guardians 2.
Yeah, spoiler for Guardians of the Galaxy. Burgess Meredith makes an appearance.
Just because we all saw that recently.
And just goes, Mickey loves you, and then dies.
Mickey loves you.
It has a strange tone to it because the whole it's a bit of a retcon, because when he's in the shower in the first scene, I noticed this time that he was wearing that chain with the boxing glove on it. In previous films, the only time we've ever seen it, Apollo was wearing it, so it is a complete retcon. It's okay. The dialogue, again, I've heard it all before in different things. The aforementioned interview with Customato, you can probably find it on YouTube. He's got Tyson sat next to him. I've got a picture in my mind of Tyson wearing a hat while that interview's going on. I might be right. I might be wrong, sorry. But he says, I probably wouldn't be around now if it wasn't for him. I will stay around and I will watch him become a success. And when I go, he'll be able to take care of himself, not just in the ring, but in life. The dialogue that's in the scene is just taken from that interview, which makes it jar for me because I'd seen that, I think, before I'd seen the film, because I was always a boxing fan at that age. So because I know it's sort of cobbled together from somebody else's work, somebody else's thoughts, it doesn't sound like Mickey to me. Does it to you guys?
You know what? It didn't sound like Mickey. I mean, I understand where Becca is coming from because it adds like an emotional touch.
Oh, it's definitely
and I think Sly plays it well just from his reactions. But it didn't feel like Mickey to me because it felt like Mickey being too nice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine him being so lovey-dovey, or not lovey-dovey, but being kind of very soft and sentimental like that. I mean, I was like...
I mean, there isn't really... I mean, you never really see... He's always been like a quote of tough love, really. I don't doubt that that's what Mickey probably felt if he had a proper heart.
He wouldn't say it.
Yeah.
The one line he says that I can't remember is in the D'Amato interview. It could well be. It's the sort of thing he would have said. But the one line that authentically imprints itself onto Mickey is where he says, I'm not much a fan of people think the stuff that comes out of people's mouths. That's Mickey. But then to go on with, I love you and here's this. He doesn't say I love you, but that's the gist. He's telling Rocky what Rocky means to him. Sylvester Stallone does play it really well, although would he stand in the ring watching it like that? But with a bit of artistic license, yeah, because he looks kind of nostalgic and a bit upset and proud and everything at the same time. Stallone in that scene. But I thought it was kind of a mistake only because it's a bit on the nose of what's following, but also Burgess Meredith does not look well here.
Well, if you were dead as well, you'd probably don't look very well, would you?
Yeah, I've been in a box for 8 years. Or 2 months, depends on how you measure the time frame.
Yes, I guess.
I died in 1981 and 2 months ago, or whatever. Yeah, I've always found it affecting, and I've never quite put my fingers on why, because the dialogue I know comes from someone else's mouth.
Yeah,
I've heard it come from someone else's
mouth.
So
you know the references to.
So
much,
it doesn't.
really.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like Mickey to me. But does it not sound like Mickey to me because I know it's someone else? If I quoted a passage from someone else who was famous, you wouldn't go, "Oh, that sounds just like Dave," even if it was the sort of thing I might say. So that I don't know, but I think the reason I find it so affecting is literally he looks unwell.
I mean, I didn't. For me, I don't think it really. I mean, it was just more of a level of acceptance of the fact that, well, of course he looks older. So for me, like, what the question of like, okay, well, maybe he should have just not bothered if it looks too jarring, the fact that he's clearly aged now. But that aside, it's like, well, obviously you can't help the actor being aged, and obviously you can't just reuse stuff they've already had from previous films.
Maybe you could have shot it as a reverse, in that what you've got is you see the back of Rocky, and you see Mickey full frame his face. You could have switched that and just had Mickey, the back of Mickey, and his voice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never really thought about that before, but yeah, I struggle with that scene. So around now, he meets Tommy. Am I right?
Yes, I think he tries to introduce himself at first, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Or is this...
He randomly approaches him in the street. Hi, I'm Tommy Gunn.
Or is this later on?
God.
Isn't this not later on, though? Because didn't he first introduce himself where with the whole big clash with the not Don King, and then Adrian comes along?
Yeah, and then Tommy Gunn just goes up and approaches himself.
That's right, because he says we've got the medical reports and we can work around them. George Washington Duke says that to Adrian, doesn't he? We've seen the medical.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think you're going at it the wrong. That's not the one you got to convince. You know, because
I know.
When he was in good health, she wasn't over delighted about it.
Yeah, but he tries to pull the whole looks like the woman's sort of making all the decisions, like sort of like the real.
Which might be true, but is she really going to be susceptible, as someone who was not that into it to start with, to we can work around it? Yeah, that sounds good. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Rocky manages to kit out the gym completely, even though he's got no money. He's already Mickey, isn't he? He's just training local fighters.
Which I guess is probably nice. He kind of like, you can see sort of Rocky going back to his roots now, and he's done what he could do. He's, he almost feels like, yeah, Rocky, you're back at home now, almost. There's a nice sort of comfort feeling to that. A bit sad because you think, oh, what he's come from, but.
Well, I mean, it was getting too distant from us, wasn't it? But I don't know that the answer was to put him back into poverty, because that just feels like a sad way for the character to end.
No.
Had he ended.
No.
That way. When you think of the end of the film, and we'll get there in a bit, I've always thought like we were going to leave it here, were we? Really? All right, okay. Yeah, and Tommy comes up to him, and I've always had problems with this immediately, because he just starts talking, and he's just spilling out lines that, unlike an actor delivering them, he just
spits them out, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he's just trying to do the Rocky thing, where just sort of like, just
there's a bit of Rocky clone there. I must say, there's a little bit like in the early days of the character.
What made me smile was, he's like, I want you to train me. And Rocky's like, no, I'm not doing that. And I'm thinking, well, you're basically training fighters now. Is what you're doing. It's not like you're now working as a chief executive somewhere. And he said, what about boxing? No, I don't do that anymore. You're on the way to the fucking gym. So, yeah, let him come along. But I think, for whatever reason, he sticks around for hours and catches him later. And the perseverance, he lets him have a spar. And in that sparring, he just completely loses it.
Yeah.
But he's clearly raw but tough.
It's, I think that's seen as a sort of shade of what Tommy's problem is, or the issue that is inevitably about to face. Because you could say what happens with Tommy later on is a kind of like a twist. It almost feels like it's meant to sort of play out as a bit more of a betrayal, and I think there's almost like in a general narrative of a story, you kind of expect Rocky becomes the trainer and trains Tommy up to be the champion, and it's kind of like the fitting end to the Rocky saga of Rocky sort of making a new champion, find his pathway, creating a new champion rather than becoming a champion. But the idea of Tommy getting stolen away from him and kind of like going again is kind of almost like that's something different. So I think him going a bit more aggressive and violent is a little sort of a sign to say like this guy isn't particularly that nice of a guy, really, at the base of it. So
I mean, he takes him home to his house, shows him the basement, shows him all the kit, and
instantly from like not really giving a shit about him and thinking he's you're too dangerous, to like come in, have some food.
And his son has set out all his old boxing memorabilia and all the rest of it in the basement.
So all it took was I was a big fan of yours. Okay, that's all it took.
Yeah. But then he sort of started saying, his son had, and then he immediately blows his son off there to talk to. He said, I want to tell you some more things. And then he says, I want to introduce you to Frankie Fear. That was the whole fire and fear analogy that is from Customato as well. And from now on, we revisit a few montages, don't we? They have dinner before all that, and Tommy tells the story of how he was beaten up by his own father repeatedly and was a drunk. And I just thought, did we need that? Really?
That was a bit too much.
And I think it adds character to Tommy. I mean, I think had this film had more character work for everyone involved, and had it been like a longer film, like say, because this film's it's about if it was more 2 hours a film and we had a bit more character development, something like that probably would have been a lot more satisfying and fleshed out for Tommy's as a character as a whole, and probably for everyone else as well. I mean, he had a few more character beats here and there. I just think it's just part of the thing. Why
I think that's the point. It's out on a limb.
Yeah.
Because the rest of that character work isn't there really.
Yeah.
And so it's just a scene where he comes into their home and basically tells Rocky's son what a fucked up life he's had.
I guess it is like another way for us as an audience, and probably for Rocky, to sympathise with him. But it also represents an understanding of his method of boxing and why he's that aggressive, and you can kind of see it. And you probably see Rocky's thinking, "Oh, okay, I've got this kind of like talented kid but troubled. Let me try and take that anger and train him to be something really good and really positive." You could take that angle from it. I mean, that's what I kind of got from it. Whether the film is particularly good at that, I'm not saying that that's the case. But I think that's what it was kind of going for.
Yeah, I mean, I think I see what the film's trying to do.
Yeah, I just think it just fails along the way. I think it just missteps rather than but I think that's what it's going for. That's what it's trying to do.
We've barely mentioned his son, and I think the reason is the whole B plot doesn't massively interest me. But of course, he's now going to a local school and getting the shit kicked out of him daily by a couple of the boys. One with a equally impressive mullet. The other one who looks like Edward Furlong but with an eating disorder. Basically, if Edward Furlong,
he looks like one of the Goonies.
Yeah, and it basically gets the shit kicked out of him every day while some girl looks on a little bit like hello, and so he tries to talk to his dad about it. His dad's not really paying any attention. And so he ends up basically training in the gym under
Paulie.
Now, this is through the film, but frankly, it's such a shit plot. We'll just get it done now. He trains under Paulie, and towards later in the film, lots of knowing looks from Paulie about how he can see his own father is neglecting him. And later in the film, he beats the boys up, and they're suddenly his mates. And that's it. But we even have a fight scene where it's like, go for it, which was the strap line from this film anyway.
So yeah, wasn't it? Yeah, that was the film tagline, wasn't it?
Fucking shit. Go for it! It's just like, why am I watching two 14-year-olds fight really badly? I don't care. It does shadow the whole getting obsessed with Tommy's progress thing that Rocky's doing. Several times, his boy tries to talk to him, and he either cuts him off or says, go and tell your mother, or he goes, well, that's great, but, and straight back to Tommy.
Yeah. I will say this for the bit with the kids fighting. There was one part I liked, and it was the fact that even though he's just faced up to his bully and basically knocked him down with a few punches, and he's like, right, give me my jacket back, and he just does a kind of like a stand-up thing. Was like, we can end this now, and just like offers to shake his hand, and he's like, okay, fine. And I think that's kind of like a nice little touch of like,
if you're gonna go down this path, that's where it's got to end.
Yeah.
And I kind of quite like that, because had he beaten the kid up, and that's the last we saw.
Yeah. And
he just ran to tell his dad. His dad went, yeah, whatever, because he's busy. Then
what message that sent?
Well, it's not only that; it's the fact that, I mean, I don't care about this storyline, so I'm trying to give it almost praise that I sort of don't think it deserves. But at the same time, if you finish on, you've got more closure to the story, because he was not settled in that school. He's a little rich kid. He's always known wealth. If they shake his hand and he's got their respect, and you later see them hanging out at his house, then you can at least accept that he will probably have a much more comfortable life from now on, rather than he's just beating up the bullies, but we've got no idea what school is like from him going forward.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's just like, should we say, a way to say that he's actually quite well adjusted and he's got some morals to him. So it's that good old fashioned like, I'll punch you down, but I'll shake your hand and we'll call it a day there. You know what I mean? Like sort of like, and just in that good old fashioned like, there's no malicious to this to us. It's just like, okay, well, fine, we had a fight, done dusted now. Okay,
yeah,
that's it.
I think he says you're all right or something like that. I think,
managed to make it up at the end.
You had the judgment to grow that mullet. I'm not sure I'm to trust your opinion, to be honest.
Bad 80s fashion.
I mean, like, I was wondering at what point did he get the get the earring?
But at the same time, all this is happening. There's a lot going on here. Tommy, we see his first fight. It's a clear echo of the Spider Rico fight from the first.
Yeah,
film.
it really is.
Right the way from camera angles. It starts on the stained glass of Jesus, pans down, and it's the same camera shots and everything. He nearly gets beaten in this first fight, or he certainly struggles, and he's talking about dropping out. He talks him around Rocky. Again, he's using some custom-auto language, and I don't like Tommy Morrison's acting here. But yeah, it's kind of cool. It tells you that as much as he's later told, well, you're not Mickey. Tommy isn't you and you're not Mickey. Actually, he's got an aptitude for this. He does have an aptitude for training. This film shows us he has. But we kind of get like a bit of a montage, don't we, really? It's kind of, we see lots of Tommy fights intercut with headlines saying he's now 8-0, he's now 11-0, he's now 16-0, and also, but they're starting to call him puppet, robot, basically clone of Rocky. At the same time, you've got George Washington Duke at ringside for a lot of these fights, and you know he's bringing women, a woman in particular, to the ringside to meet him. And you get shots of Paulie looking at it and seeing what's happening, and Rocky is oblivious.
Yeah. It just makes you think, like, Rocky is just really fucking dumb.
Yeah, well,
like, it could not be more obvious.
But he was street smart. He should know this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. He's going over to a guy who said to Rocky's wife, "We can work around this brain damage." And at the same time, we see Union Kane win the vacant title because Rocky's retired. So around that time, Union Kane's got the title. Everything's and it's just a long. It's not that long a film. This period of the film is just basically the whole story of him getting towards 22-0, I think he is, when he leaves.
Just a quick question: how does one win the vacant title? Is it like you just take the two top contenders?
Generally, I mean, that's the way it should work. I mean, it isn't always like that, but yeah, that's the way it should work. You take the two people ranked highest, or the two most available highest ranked. Certainly, it depends on I mean, when it was vacated, if you had a mandatory challenger, that mandatory challenger would be one of them. So yeah. Anyway, the point is the titles are taken by Kane, so it's under the control of him. We also don't we see Duke go and show him like an apartment and stuff?
Yeah, he invites him over and he's sort of like, "Hey, lots of girls," and this. He's like entices him with.
He wants to show him the high life.
Yeah.
And he splits with Rocky on the fights. Are ludicrous. The fights are a little bit over the top because you've got people bouncing off the ropes into Tommy's like fist, and then their feet flying out in front of them.
That was really weird.
Oh, it was just a bit too much, really. And the funny thing is, a lot of the punches, they're what they call like arm punches. You're supposed to sort of turn your body in with a punch. Although if you just punch just by throwing your arm, typically there's no power in that. And there's loads of that in this film. But I suppose he doesn't want to hurt anyone if he's a real boxer. If he's in with like an actor, he's not going to want to twat him for real, is he? The film actually speeds along quite quickly because we're at him leaving Rocky quite quickly.
I must say, like, for all this film, like, I know there isn't a lot of love for this film. But it does have a little bit of heart, but for all its faults, it doesn't. I mean, well, I'd say it is a little bit on the long side, but I don't feel it drags.
I don't think it's that long at all. I think it's the second. No, it's third.
I think it's just maybe there's a bit of a sort of depressing tone in the second half of the film. I think that kind of nails it for me. But I don't think it drags at all.
So he leaves Rocky on Christmas Eve.
The bastard.
I know.
Yeah, it's pretty sort of like the ultimate dick move, but also like you bring in like not Don King with you, being a loudmouth. It's like he just wanted to come. It's like why?
He wanted to come. Well, what's that got to do with anything?
Yeah, and his reasoning for it is basically like, look, we've been training for so long. You've not given me the title shot. He can give me like sort of next week apparently.
He'll get me the shot, and we haven't made any real money yet.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. I mean, he literally hands... The one thing that isn't very Don King is when they're discussing it and he says to him, "You can still keep Rocky as your trainer." He says, "Here's a $20,000 advance," and hands him what appears to be a check. Don King wasn't that type of guy. Don King was very much flash cash at them because it impresses poor people who grew up poor. So quite often if Don King like owed someone $1 million or something, I mean, he did it with Muhammad Ali. He got Muhammad Ali to sign a release for about $50,000 in cash because it looks like a lot of money. But yeah, so he gets in the car. He's got this stupid convertible, this airhead for him that looks about twice his age. I don't mean that to be nasty. It's just bear in mind he's early 20s at this point. She looks a lot older than that. and Rocky begs him to stay, and then basically that's one of these sort of concussive moments you get through the film, where his brain damage is hurting.
This is like one of his big things where he sort of says he doesn't care about you. It's he doesn't care about you or me. It's just like the money. I mean, I do think the thing with him saying, "Oh, sure, Rocky can stay be a trainer," was kind of like a shallow promise. It's like, "Oh, sure, he can do it," but knowing full well that it does not going to mean shit.
It's not. It's going to be too acrimonious a breakup.
He just knows that he's ended up going to be sidelined regardless of what happens. So
and the same sort of thing happened with Tyson. Suddenly he wasn't working with Kevin Rooney anymore, and he worked with a succession of trainers afterwards, most of which, not all, there were one or two good names in there, but he worked with a handful who were just nothing really. When he lost in Tokyo, they didn't even have an end swell in the corner, which is the flat iron that reduces swelling. They didn't even have one in the corner, so Tyson's eye starts to swell, and they just put like a bag of ice on it. It's amateur night. And that would never have happened before Tom King came along. It's all playing to the worst instincts. And this is where it's getting it from. This is where the film is drawing that from, that his head's been turned by money. I thought Stallone played, where he says about he doesn't care about me either, he plays that better in the bar at the end than he does at the car. He don't care about me either. He just wants to get us in the ring together. But that's it. And then he gets a shot at the title. Fights Union Kane. Rocky, boxes along to it.
I mean, this before he patches things up with his son, he kind of he has a heart attack.
Yeah, his son's on a street corner now, sort of smoking with an earring on.
He's a rebellious teenager.
Yeah. Cigarette smoking was listed as a factor in his early death because he used to smoke 2 packets a day.
Christ.
So it's quite hard watching it with 14, having a fag there. I don't know if it's a cigarette. Sorry to
just
our
think
American
it might have still
listeners.
started from there.
Yeah,
That has a whole other meaning.
Rocky 5 killed Stallone's son.
He does apologise. There was a scene in
I
his
think it's just
film.
part of the whole Teen Rebellion thing, really, isn't it? Because he starts hanging out with the wrong crowd, gets his ear pierced.
Yeah,
Smokes
with
and
the ridiculous
ears,
earring.
as you say, so.
He basically looks exactly the same, but with an earring stuck on.
With a tough earring.
It's
And
not
an
like-
attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
like he
cheap.
went all goth or anything, is it? But there was a cut scene from this film. Marie was supposed to be in this film. Little Marie from the first film?
Oh, yeah.
And she turned out, as Rocky predicted, she was supposed to be a prostitute in this film. And of course, they've cut that, which means it wasn't really in the story, and they can retcon all that next week. We'll get to it with Rocky Balboa. But yeah, there was a scene with Little Marie as a prostitute in it.
Yeah, which would have been like a nice little dark sort of tone. The fact
Bit
that
too dark.
what Rocky said to her in the first Rocky film, it's like, well, that's happened now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the film's trying to be telling us with that. What, Rocky's so wise? You didn't spot your own son in this twat right in front of you, and but you're really prescient on prostitution or something, or the effects of poverty.
Yeah, I guess and again, the film doesn't do a very good job of this, admittedly, but I do think it's just Rocky just getting blindsided by his glory after losing everything. He's just kind of lose sight of what actually is important, which is his son and his family. But he's just getting blindsided and he's kind of reliving his glory days through Tommy, So he's just literally all his attention is just on him on the good old days, trying to get rebuild back a career.
He's too
almost.
close to his own career. By the time we
Yeah.
get to Creed, he's an old man. He genuinely can't, honestly, by that point, be reliving his own glories in quite the same way. This is a frustrated fighter still, effectively.
Yeah.
And I doubt he is by Creed. He's quite accepting of where he is by that point.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's quite subtle, because why wouldn't he still be living through the generation? But you never get the impression Rocky is anything other than accepting of where he is, whether he likes it or not. But then, he goes on to fight Union Kane. Rocky watches it on the TV. Rocky sort of shadow boxes along with it, or boxes on the heavy bag along with it. That's an okay scene. It's a bit on the nose because they're copying some of each other's punches, but that's fine. He wins, and he wins to a shower of booze, basically.
Yeah.
And signs with people, basically Rocky's robot and all that kind of shit. And he absolutely loses his shit over it. He says, I don't know what's wrong with these people. And they go to a press conference, and Duke is talking at Balboa. For obvious reasons, because he wants them to fight. Yeah, keep Rocky in people's minds.
Yeah.
And he loses his shit over that. and goes off and throws a tantrum in a really sort of... I don't know, there's something about watching someone have a tantrum in a tracksuit with a baseball cap on that looks fucking stupid.
Especially a big puffy...
I know. I don't think it was a shell suit, but it certainly evoked that. Yeah, it didn't look good. And his acting is dreadful here. It's just so over the top. There's no mounting anger. There's no rage that then subsides. There's no nothing. There's just a non-actor shouting his lines.
Yeah. It's like, what do you mean I've earned this championship? Yeah, it's like, yeah. I mean, I guess there is that frustration there with that with him. But you
buy this? I mean, one of Duke's aides says to him something like, Rocky's always going to be a legend, or whatever the line is. You'll never get respect while he's around, or something like that. And he goes immediately straight to the bar to find him and have a fight there and then.
Well, I think we established that he has anger issues.
Yeah.
So I get, and being not Don King,
he has thick as pig shit issues as well, doesn't he?
Well, that's probably where he bonded with Rocky a bit.
Maybe.
But,
do you reckon they sit of an evening and just watch like Asses of Fire, the Terrence and Phillip movie?
But not Don King is quite good at manipulating people, especially with like people who aren't particularly that bright. He's probably done it with all the other boxers. So
I know they're not bright, but it's just like he's trying to wind him up enough to. I don't know why he's trying to wind him up, because he already wants to write Rocky. It's Rocky you need, but I suppose he winds him up to call him out. But it's just
we've already had the when he won the fight as well. Rocky's like at least expecting, or at least. Give me something. And he says the angel on the shoulder bit, and then he says George Washington Duke. Yeah. And Rocky just pauses, doesn't he? His face almost freezes for a second. I mean, what is the ultimate insult is the fact that that's what Rocky said is like, I'm your angel on your shoulder, and to kind of like, it's one thing just to not thank him, and thank the other guy, but to actually
appropriate his terms as a means of not thanking him, if you like, I don't know if that would have been deliberate. Again, because Tommy Morrison's not an actor, we can't see that subtle vein of spite in it. I've never read that as he said that pointedly, knowing Rocky would be watching. Now, that could have been an intention in the script, but it's not sold by the actor. Yeah. So I just thought it was some dumb twat repeating some cliche he's heard.
I think that's what it is. Given to what I know of the character and what I understand of him, I think it's more just thoughtlessness.
That's how I've read it. But if there could have been an intention for a little bit more spite in it, and we'd never know.
Possibly. So had it been a lot more fleshed out, shall we say?
Yeah.
But I mean, there could be the argument the fact that he's still resenting Rocky for not giving him the shot because he's a bit of an impatient swat.
We're racing to the end of the film now, basically.
Not Don King.
Yeah.
You've got Rocky finishes the fight. Finishes watching the fight. Paulie's pissed off with all of it. Paulie in this film seems very protective of Rocky. Tried to warn him, and he starts the whole fight off in a minute by just having to shout at Tommy for the way he's treated Rocky. Paulie's, for once in this series, a generally likable character if you forget the first few minutes. Because in the first few minutes, he's like, what a piss pot, but the rest of the film, he's a different character almost entirely, but it's an aspect that's always been in there somewhere. So it doesn't jar, but they go to this pub, which is ludicrously covered in graffiti outside, which is funny. But it's the same bar from the first fight. It's the same bartender as well. I don't know if he's still alive. I need to look him up, actually. I think he probably passed away by now. But, they turn up to call him out.
Which with a TV camera as well.
They've arranged that quite quickly.
Like, I don't understand what's... I mean, obviously, I think they weren't obviously planning on having an actual street fight. But I think the initial point of the TV is to kind of like make it a bit more of a show for everyone. So they can put Rocky on a spot to get him to agree. I guess that's the reason for it. But this kind of like escalates quite quickly, doesn't it? This kind of goes from...
I think it's ludicrous, and I just think, well, like, as much as where fighters sort of cross an era, and you're not quite sure if the old timers passed it or not, you might still wish you'd seen that fight. He's there calling out a retired boxer who's lost everything. It looks petulant and spiteful. If that's meant to get anyone thinking this is a good idea, I'm not convinced it works.
Well, everyone's kind of like with Rocky anyway, and that's the problem. So,
well, Tommy's always going to be the bad guy in that scenario,
Yeah.
and I think he would accept that.
he just like, right, I just want to sort of at least say how well I beat Rocky, you know. Yeah, going into it, and also you have it's all just played by not Don King, who is essentially that sort of that kid standing behind the bully, sort of like doing all the shit talk, essentially, which is like kind of like, okay, you're like the guy who I really want to punch, but okay. Yeah, so they kind of like they call him out. Rocky just ignores them, so they actually come in.
Yeah, they just walk straight back inside. Yeah. I ain't finished with you yet. It's like, this is fucking mental, and he's furious. That's what I find so funny. He's like, I know he's been wound up by Duke, but he basically dunked Rocky. This is like a couple of months later or whatever it might be. I mean, fights are never announced, much less than like 3 months before they happen. So, and he's come in shouting at Rocky. And it's like, I don't get that at all.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, hang on, you're shouting at the guy who's ditched you, and it's just like, you know, it's just, I think, obviously, I mean, what I can read into it, it's just something that he just really, really wants, so he just feels entitled to it. So he's
but there's a difference between passion and petulant rage.
Yeah. Well, again, that's probably just a flaw of his character, which is his downfall, which is...
Oh, no, I do just think it's the actor. I think they
probably,
could have done more with this.
Yeah, definitely. But we have to take what we got. So, but yeah, no, I agree. But by this time, he kind of like basically when he's shouting down, Rocky's basically sort of trying to be the bigger man, trying to turn his back on him, saying like sort of, no, do you really think I care? Do you think he cares about me, so to speak? And then Paulie kind of escalates things a little bit. He kind of calls him like, what does he say? He's a real piece of trash, you know.
He said, "You're a real piece of garbage."
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he goes forward and basically, as soon as he hits him a couple of times. And I was reminded of another Tyson thing, that Tyson assaulted someone in the late 80s. I mean, there were lots of little run-ins with the law, but I just remember one time when there was one of these charges, he was charged with assault with a deadly weapon because he's a professional boxer. His fists are the deadly weapon. You can't, if you're a professional boxer, assault suddenly takes on a very different legal, particularly for the world heavyweight champion, which he now is. You can't just go punching an old man in a bar like that. I mean, the police would be called. It wouldn't just be, let's all watch a fight.
Yeah.
This is on camera as well. But all right, give it that pass. And that does. I
mean, you could say like he sealed his fate right there and then anyway, regardless of what happens.
Yes, he did, and that does prompt Rocky, and something needs to prompt Rocky. So I get it.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a good line. It's like you knock him down, why you try and knocking me down now?
Yeah, that's an okay line. But they go outside. What do we think of this fight?
I do think we could have had like some sort of thing off Paulie. You know, he doesn't he say like so go knock his block off or something.
I can't remember.
But yeah, I think by that point it could have been nice to sort of, I'm sorry, I'm always a bit of screw, kind of like just referring to like the whole money thing and just had that or to add to it, you know what I mean? To get Rocky to stick up for him. But anyway, so they come out and I'm one thing I don't get is, would you seemingly against this, but then also it's like, oh well, I'll just be calling out stuff. Then I guess it's happening. You know, I guess Duke would be like, no, doing it in the ring because there's no money to be made here.
Yeah, no, I get that. I do get that. He actually says to him at one point a bit later on, if you lose, you're finished.
Yeah.
I.e., if you win this, we might be able to sell something in the ring, because, I mean, he's just trained for the World Heavyweight title fight. Rocky's been doing fuck all for months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is, yeah.
But he literally just came from a fight, though, as well.
Yeah, he did, but I know that. But, I mean, the fight was done in, like, a round, so it's not like he's exhausted or anything.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, And again, this fight against contemporary hip hop music.
I hate this fight. I hate this fight. I just don't like it. It's not because it's neither fish nor fowl, is it? It's not really a boxing match. It's not really wrestling. It's kind of they're punching him in the back. It's cut awkwardly. It looks very studio in places. And they cut a scene a bit later on where he's down and, you get a little sort of insert of Mickey saying, get up because Mickey loves you. Mickey was meant to be stood on the bridge.
Yeah.
They've cut that. They've actually had him there as a ghostly apparition.
Have you seen that? In there is a work print version, and I think you probably.
I haven't. I'm aware of it. I can't imagine it playing as anything other than awful.
It is better. I think it plays a bit better. I know what you mean, because what happens. Well, the reason why it's better, it's longer. Also, in this version, Tommy lays into Rocky first properly. Like,
yeah,
he probably, but in the version we watched, Rocky just goes in first as well. So it just looks a little bit more provoked, as like Rocky tries to turn his back, saying like, "Look, we don't need this."
That makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, so it just plays a little bit more better. Plus, also you don't have the hip hop music in this. It's in the well, I don't know if it would have been that anyway had they used this, but they kind of just have no music, and it only sort of kicks into the traditional Rocky stuff with when Mickey comes in, because you see Mickey at the top of the bridge where the train runs, and it's almost like Mickey calling giving advice from there.
Yeah, that's all a bit much. Elements of what you've just told me make some sense, but I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah.
Although the one more round and him rising up, I thought was awful. That was much more like something Stallone himself would have directed. So it's for something very similar.
Like doing all the sort of like street fighting, sliding, tripping about.
I hated all that as well. But
it's not a boxing thing, is it? It's a bit odd.
But it's exactly. It's like, what are they proving at this point?
Yeah.
I mean, if Rocky beats it, if Tommy beat Rocky by like 2 falls and a submission, what's that prove to anybody when they're both boxers?
I don't know. I mean, it's just a beat up thing. One of the things that I would say, and I guess it does play into what I said before with the son and the bully. But in the extended cut, and I can't remember it happening in the actual cut that we watch. But when Rocky does beat Tommy against the front of the bus, he helps him up. So there's a kind of a sign of like mutual respect after that. I don't remember that happening in that version in the actual theatrical cut, or the one we actually watched.
I've no recollection of that.
Yeah.
Tommy's down and out at the end of this. You've got the bit that I feel sorry for Sage Stallone in this scene, because he goes, he says something like, knock him out, he stole my room. And I just think, is there anyone watching that who would be like, yeah, that kid lost his room. Fucking get him, Rocky. So yeah, I felt sorry for that. Line was written for him and he had to deliver it. He delivered it with gusto, but it's a shit line. And then he knocks out George Washington Duke, which is funny because he hits him somewhere in the sort of solar plexus, and he flies backwards.
Touch me and I'll sue. Touch me and I'll
I know,
sue,
but he flies backwards like he's doing a backward dive off a fucking diving board or something. It's just quite funny. That just doesn't look remotely real.
Does he not say go for it when he's...
The crowd's all cheering, and he walks off bloody with Adrian, and it's like, sue me for what? And it's like, right, so he's skint. Brilliant. It's like, what a way to end the series.
Becca, what do you make of the fight?
I'm in two minds about it, really, because on one hand I do agree with what you're saying. It does it kind of very staged, very studio-esque, badly cut together. But also you kind of got, I mean, obviously Rock is very much kind of like of the streets, so it's quite refreshing to have it like as a street fight rather than, they actually kind of meet finally in the boxing ring.
I mean, would we prefer it if they had done if they obviously it would have been a much longer film, or maybe if they cut it differently. But had it actually been a boxing match, like not Don King got his way, and the finale was Rocky versus Tommy in the ring.
Well, no, because the film has just spent most of its running time showing us Rocky's a bellend, or implying he is, and then the end of the film fucking proves it. If he gets back in the boxing ring, you've just been told it'll kill you, you idiot.
I know, but if that was like where the film was going in, like sort of that was the planned route of the film to do that.
I don't know.
I don't
know there's a satisfying way to deal with this, because a street fight's never going to work. It's a boxing film, and suddenly we got them doing fucking slides and shit like that. It's weird. I didn't like it.
No, that's pretty much what I think, really. I mean, at the same time, you've got this, essentially a street fight sort of thing. So I don't think it would have been an improvement had we seen them, end it in the boxing ring, as it were. But yeah, I think some of Sage's best scenes aren't towards the end, but I think by the very end it is kind of a very touching moment, and it's not like he's sort of handing over the baton, but it's ending on a high. I think the original ending of the film was going to be that Rocky died. But I think it's kind of good that it was kind of, he survived the end of the film.
That would have been morbid, wouldn't it?
And that would have been really, really sad.
It's just miserable.
Depressing.
I just couldn't, I wouldn't have been happy with that.
No, it was nice that it kind of like had this, it was kind of like a victory on moral grounds, I guess. And it kind of ended on this kind of uplifting note, old dogs can learn new tricks. But yeah, I think that the fight itself, I think, is perhaps, we've seen better in the Rocky series, let's just put it like that.
Well, I guess that does lead into final thoughts, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'll go first. I think... I can't say it's a good film, as I said before. I do think the problems rely in... I think they needed more development of characters. I think if this was probably like a bit of a longer film, had a chance to actually do that, and maybe if it was just... If it had more enthusiasm by the cast members and the crew, I think it would have had a much better film. And if it had taken a lot more traditional eye rather than like try and be contemporary, it would have held it up better over time as well. But having said that, it's not. I don't think it's terrible. It's just flawed, but it has a conception that at least tries to do something. I think had the ending with the street fight had been earned somewhat, we wouldn't have, or would have had some purpose. Had the film done better work at building up a purpose towards a street fight, where that would have been a more suitable. Or
it is almost out of nowhere in the time of the film. I mean, in real time, in the that evening, if you like. It's the main event somewhere. We'll assume it's that side of the country. So I would have thought 10, 11 o'clock at night or whatever. So they go out and have a few beers afterwards, and he turns up and have a fight. And that's really odd, because about 4 or 5 hours earlier, neither of them would have thought of doing that. So there's no real build up to it.
It just turns really quickly, doesn't it?
He gets booed. Duke pisses him off with comments about Rocky. He loses his shit. A couple of words later, he's right outside the door, ready to give it some.
Yeah, I think that's what you mean. I think that's kind of how I feel as well. I don't think it's not earned. It's kind of, it feels a bit slapdash, but I think it has its heart in the right place. I think it just kind of messes up. It just fails to kind of like set its own course.
That's my last words. Actually, I'm going to echo what you just said there. For everything I've just said, it's got its heart in the right place.
Yeah, I can't argue with that, really. I mean, from the production values, you're harking a lot to the look and feel and the kind of, definitely in terms of the texture and the way it's shot and lit, very much harkens back to the first film. So going from, say, for example, the shiny, squeaky, slathered up sort of glittery accesses of Rocky 4, right back to the kind of very pared back, stripped back, rags to riches kind of style of the first film. And over here, obviously, we're coming full circle towards the end, or the then end of the franchise, from riches to rags again. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of production values, it's kind of going back to basics. It's quite dry, I would say. But yeah, definitely is. Your heart's in the right place for sure.
Can I just probe that a little bit, Becca? What do you mean by dry in this scenario? Do you mean you were bored by it, or?
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It was just because in terms of the characterization from like Tommy Gunn and so, I mean, it's they are sportsmen and sort of and family. They're not actors. So that's fine. I mean, I'm not an actor, so I can't really talk. But yeah, it just kind of didn't really grip me, I must say, and that's kind of why I felt it was a bit kind of dry in parts, really. And there's no real there's no real threat there. I don't think there wasn't a real sort of credible reason, really. I didn't feel, and that's why I vote Drago. But no, definitely his heart's in the right place. But sadly, I wouldn't. If I was to place them in order of preference, I wouldn't place this one right particularly high.
Yeah, but would you feel better about it if you knew more facts or the answer to some quiz questions or something?
I do have some quiz questions.
Do you? Wow, and I thought that was just a natural link. I was just chit-chatting. What were the answers to last week's?
Okay, last week's. Okay, so my questions from last week's were: how much can Drago punch? £1,890.
Hang on,
How
I
long
thought it went up to 2150.
Yeah, 215, but that was literally the final figure.
Okay.
How long had Creed been out of retirement? The answer was 5 years. And where did the Creed Drago fight happen? MGM Grand in Las Vegas, of course. So yeah, what advice does Paulie give for Rocky? Obviously, hit the one in the middle, obviously. Rocky 4 is that the shortest film in the series. True, false? True. It's only like 1991 minutes, and that's on one. So that's my stupidly easy quiz questions. And this time I've got some more stupidly easy quiz questions. Most of which
these will be harder. This will be harder on the basis that people don't really concentrate on or watch this film much.
No.
So it'll be a little bit harder on that basis.
Number 1, what is not Don King's catchphrase? And number 2, where is Tommy Gunn from? What state is he from? Question number 3, what is Rocky suffering from after his last fight? And if you can get a technical name for it, that's really impressive. Question number 4, what is the name of Duke's contender? Question number 5, what item did Rocky give to Tommy Gunn? And that's my quiz questions for Rocky 5.
It's a good job you didn't mention that, wasn't it? Because I was just thinking, I've not talked about that bit. Because there is that, the answer to that question is a little bit kind of like, okay, we can probably talk about that later on in the series, and we kind of ponder.
But we didn't.
But yeah, so that's it for Rocky 5.
Yeah, we did well to squeeze the show with that length out of it, to be honest with you.
We did.
You impressed? Yeah. So well, I think tomorrow's not tomorrow. Gee, that's what
Tomorrow,
you're thinking.
really? That was quick.
Yeah.
Well, with our bizarre schedule, we are already about 3 or 4 days from recording the next one, but it isn't tomorrow.
I think next week's going to be a little lighter on the plot. I think it's going to be treading over a lot of familiar ground, but we'll see. It'll be interesting to rewatch it.
Next week's one of those films that I'll pick at but not mean it, and all I mean is the logic of it. And I'm not just saying because he's 55 or the character is, but the logic from scene to scene doesn't actually make a lot of sense. But there are some lovely bits in it. It does draw you in. It
You've got
does.
an anniversary sort of as well, haven't you?
I think also,
Milestone.
Becca, the fight he's in that film is presented as a real HBO presentation. So you've got real presenters behaving like they grew up, well, they probably did grow up with the Rocky films, but they grew up with him as the champ. So they're all excited that they're going to commentate on a Rocky fight. And it's things like that. And also, it's been much quoted and it's been much repeated in different arenas, that speech about it's about how hard you can hit and keep moving forward. It's even quoted in the new David Brent film. But it's a magnificent scene. It's a magnificent piece of writing, and it's actually, although there's a grandstanding element to it, most of the sentiments in it are a reflection of how Rocky's lived. So where we find it, where we pick him up in life, and Paulie and all the rest of it, I like the way he's sort of living his life, and it's not unusual for ex-boxers to be in the position he's in, or ex-sportsmen. I like next week's film a lot.
Again, it's one that I've still not seen, so I shall look forward to watching it.
What are your recollections, Chris?
I haven't seen this film a lot. I think I've only really sat down and watched it once before. So, generally, I think of it as in quite good terms. Going into it, looking back, without watching it, it's like a nice, fitting end to the Rocky series. That's almost like a
which it semi is. Him
Yeah.
as the leading man and a fighter in any way. It is. Creed is still a Rocky film as far as I'm concerned, but it's a different beast. So this is almost like a false ending to the Rocky series.
It's nostalgic. Well, what's the word? It's like a nostalgic trip down memory lane, but as like a fitting sort of farewell to the Rocky story, which Creed then picks up to tell us to take that story onwards with a
I think I enjoyed it very much at the time. I still like it. I've got some problems with it that I didn't have at the time. Some of them are just stylistic. I really don't like the fight, and I'll get into reasons why next week. But I do like some of the decisions around it. And I almost like the balls of making it. It's like, oh, come on, he's in his 50s, this ain't going to work. And then it did. But we've got 2 films left in this series now, and in my opinion, they are both to some degree good.
We could do grudge match.
Fuck off.
Come on, Rocky versus Raging Bull. You know you want to.
I stand by. Fuck
off. I actually quite enjoyed grudge match actually, but
I thought it was crap. Having said that, it wasn't that far away from Escape Plan, which was a far worse film.
Oh, I love the Escape Plan.
Oh, of course you did. You're Chris.
Well, that's me. That Escape Plan was great.
No, truthfully, though, we've got 2 films left in this series. As far as I'm concerned, they're the 2 that sort of come back towards the quality of the first 2. So we're going to finish on a high.
Yeah, definitely. Like a really good high as well, I think.
So, social media, folks.
Oh, yes, you can follow me at Cinematronics on Twitter. You can also find this podcast at cinematronics.co.uk.
Yeah, which is now a far more expensive site than it was a week ago.
Yes.
Chris was on the wrong plan.
Yeah, well, put it like this. I was yeah, well, all these people sort of saying how expensive it is to put podcasts out, you know, I was like...
He's going, it's only 15 quid a year.
To fairness, they let me, no one else stopped me, so I was like, okay.
He's now found it's like 20-something a month.
Yeah.
Which is why we lost our... you will have lost the feed for a couple of days. So if you went looking for a podcast about a week before this is released, that's why it wasn't there. Chris got locked out of his own site.
Well, actually, no, that wasn't it. I think there was like a usual formatting issue, which now has got fixed. But I think whatever happened, they got in touch with like one of the heads to sort it out, and they just sort of like, oh, by the way, you're on the wrong plan. I was like, oh, okay.
Damn it.
Yes, then.
So, alright, fine.
So, yeah, we may be setting up a premium phone line so you can ring and hear me finish quickly. Because we've got a fund, Chris.
It's
only
20 quid a month, it's not like it's...
If you're happy with that, it's fine. But, you know, me and Becca pay fuck all, so we're really committed.
There's anything we can do, you know.
Except money, you know. You want us to just applaud while you pay, that's fine. You can find me at thepastykid1976 on Twitter.
And you can also find us on Twitter at Expect Us to Talk, facebook.com, type in Expect Us to Talk into the search box. Also hit us up on YouTube, Expect Us to Talk, and you can drop us an email, expectustotalk@gmail.com. I think other places, yeah, we didn't have Pinterest and all that junk just yet.
We have Letterboxd.
Yeah, I abandoned that for the time being.
We don't have Letterboxd.
Just because I don't have time right now.
To be honest,
we will have
a site that
soon.
2 of us never visit and the other person never updates.
No, I think
It's
it's about...
not the great.
I think it's rather passé now, I would say.
So anyway, we're all off to wear like chunky knitwear and dance to some hip hop, and we'll be back with Becca.
Do you expect us to talk? We'll return with Rocky Balboa.